So it's evening where I am, but probably morning where you are. I mean, depending. So this might be kind of odd coming out of nowhere, but there we have it. If it happens in my life, it happens on here, so you get to share it. One of my really great friends here in America, someone who was with me way back when we were blasting a kind of route through the fact that everything was locked down to death, and we were making gatherings happen in people's homes and backyards, and resisting and rebelling against all the rules. One of those brilliant ladies is now very seriously ill, and her diagnosis is terminal, and she'll shortly be moved to hospice for final end-of-life care. And there was a few things really I was making a video for this particular lady about, and then it got me to thinking about probably how there's so many other, let's call her Susans, out there, and how it might actually be helpful for more people to talk about this stuff too. So here goes. And my view is, clearly, I have never died. So I have to preface it that way, and my stuff is just my thoughts on what I know from my life. And if you have cancer, or you are facing a terminal diagnosis, or you have a few months to live, it might be very unhelpful, anything I have to say, because I don't understand. And I think that's precisely right, actually. I don't think anybody can understand what you are going through or what you're feeling. Even if they were experiencing exactly the same thing, we all experience stuff differently. So my views in that regard are meaningless and useless, because you know your stuff and you know it best of all. But I do know a few things about my stuff as it relates to end of life. And when I went for my massive surgery, for my brain surgery, and it was uncertain what the outcome of that would be. So there could be no coming back at all. There could be coming back, but not really, just briefly. They could have been coming back with what they called a deficit. So that would have been function, brain, deficit of speech, of movement, of left hand, of sight. And the deficit list was very long, so much so that actually I was trying to make a pact with anybody that would listen, that rather than come back with a deficit, not being able to move my left side, not being able to see, not being able to speak, not being able to swallow, I'd rather not come back at all. But being close to what could be the end, I do know a few things about my own experience. And I think the first thing is, and this is to my friend who's now going to hospice, is that it's all right to say that it's shit, because it is. And I think it's really good for people around you to acknowledge, well, this is a bit shit, isn't it? People say they don't know what to say around people that are dying or going to die. And I think it's really fine to say, well, this is actually a bit shit. Because it's sort of the art of the British understatement, and it's also perfectly true. And we so often try and make things better by talking positively about them, or bringing grapes or Lucasade. And it's terribly British not to talk about the thing in the room, but to talk about anything else very quickly. Oh, did you see the lovely flowers that were in that exhibit? Did you see did you hear? Da, da, da. Talk about something else. But I think it's all right to address the thing in the room and say this is actually quite shit. And that's probably where lovely Mark and I got to when we were told about the list of deficits that I might come back with, if I came back at all, was to be able to sit and say, well, that's shit. And once you've done that whole, well, this is a bit shit, I think we're all on the same page. And here's what I know about the last hour, I suppose, before going into surgery where you might not come back, is that bizarrely, after about 6 months of deciding I can't do the surgery because I'm scared, I can't go because I'm scared, I don't want to have my head cut open or sawed open because I'm scared, I'd rather have this life than that life, no I wouldn't. All of that crazy, like 1,000 thoughts a minute, which I imagine is similar to people with a diagnosis that is terminal, that says, but what about this? Maybe I should try that. Maybe if I did this, maybe if I didn't do that. Maybe I should end it now, maybe I should wait. There's just a whole bunch of going on in your head. What I can say with certainty, and as reassurance to anybody who might be facing the end of time, is that actually that in that last period, whenever it is for you, for me, a good, I don't know, the morning of 2-3 hours before, I felt nothing at all that was confusing or concerning. I wasn't at all overwhelmed by emotions or traumatic goodbyes. It was completely calm. And I've spoken to other people who have been on the high wire between life and death, and they say the same thing independently, is that in a final moment, wherever yours comes, there's absolute calm. And it's a calm that you will never again feel in life. And it's a calm that you sometimes yearn for, because you have absolutely no concerns. You're just walking a path. And so my reassurance to my friend, and perhaps anybody in hospice, or moments away from what might be the end here, is that when the calmness comes, you can welcome it, because it's splendid. And no one living knows that calmness. It's something unique, and you only get to feel right at the end of the thing. So there's that. And it's also incredibly freeing, because you can then, if like me, you get to live on, you know that when the end comes, it will be a very calm event. Excuse me. So I would say, it's shit, this. But just at the end, after all the traumatic bit, the turmoil, the tears, the terribleness, the grief, there's calmness. So maybe that's something to look forward to, actually, because really many of us in life seek calmness. And right before the end, I think that's exactly what you are, is completely calm. And the other thing I really feel, looking back at surgery that I did come back from, and having gone through that calm, is actually always, and now in life, I walk towards the end with absolutely no fear whatsoever, and actually much more a sense of kind of it allowing me to live every day and be not like grateful for every day, because I often wake up and think, oh, for Christ's sake, what a bunch of crap. But more like, if it did end tomorrow, that would actually be okay. And come on then, let's bring it. Let's end big. So more of an attitude of, right, balls to it then, and walking towards it. So I think there's also that. It's the idea that if you're in hospice, maybe, you know the end is coming. Everyone around you is being as kind as they can possibly be. And so once you've accepted it's going to be calm and you're going to be fine, you can say, yes, it's all right, go on then, I'm ready, bring it. Because what life teaches us, I think, is that the end bit is only just a tiny little, tiny weeny bit, isn't it? If we think of your whole life is like hugely long. Even if it was only for 25 years or 30 years, it's still really, really long, really long. And the end bit, like the bit where you go into surgery, you might not come back, it's just really short. It's just a few hours. Or the end bit, if you're in hospice and maybe you have a week or whatever, it's just a week, okay? But your life was all that time before, everything. The going out and getting trashed when you were 14, the getting arrested and put in a cell, the running over a car, which is really naughty and I'd never do that again now, the finding people that want to marry you and ask you to marry you and keep being engaged, the getting married once and having children, then being left, the fun of it, the going to festivals, the everything, the madness and the crazy. Your life is all that, the quiet times, the children, the everything, all the long stuff you did in your life. But the end bit is just boop, this tiny moment, just like a blip on a screen. And I think we lose perspective on that, don't we, at the end, because it's all consuming. It's all about the end and what's going to happen and where am I going to go and will it be painful and what will happen to me and what does it mean if I never get to speak to people I love most, what's going to happen? But actually, that boop on the screen is a tiny moment. Your life is not judged by the end of it, but by the whole thing. And so wherever you are, and if you're in hospice now, just be happy for all the bits of your life. Happy, sad, bad, glad, mad, terrible, for me, things. Be glad for all of it, because you lived it all. And remember, you probably wouldn't change a thing, nor should you. So don't judge your life by its end for certain. And one, endlessly reassuring thing that I tell people all the time is that some of the best moments of my life, some of the best days I've had, my loves, have been on a catheter and with extreme morphine. Now, admittedly, at the time, I also had a sort of, what do they call it? A drain. And humans should never have a drain. Storms should have a drain. Sidewalks should have a drain. Drains should have a cover. Drains shouldn't ever really have a drain coming out of your head, because things are pretty bad. But all I'll say is that apart from the drain in my brain, the morphine and catheter days were some of my finest days. So don't be afraid of the very end, because there will be morphine. There'll probably be a catheter. And once you bring that peace, truly you can walk towards the finish line of this place, knowing that you'll be in very safe hands indeed. That's what I wanted to say, really. Might not be a message for over your morning cereal, but I wanted it put here and recorded for anybody that might find any small piece of that to be useful in their own lives.